President William Ruto was at UNGA, which is the United Nations General Assembly, this last couple of days. And there are certain things that stood out for me. Mambo ni matatu, since that seems to be what you're talking about. There are three things that stood out for me about Ruto in America. The first thing, the continuity of the climate change conversation. I mean, you know, we had a big ACS 23 in Nairobi. And as usually happens, when something like this happens, you enjoy the moment, you enjoy the moment in the sun, and then you're done. But this particular time, you saw President Ruto carry the agenda of Nairobi and the declaration made in Nairobi to the global stage at UNGA. That was a powerful, powerful thing. And you could see he carried a lot of the people he had been with. He carried the agenda. He articulated that agenda very, very powerfully. Now in front of the international community, who are, of course, some of the people who are very critical players, if we're going to have a conversation about climate, about how to manage our environment and how to take care of the environment, which is really something that we are given to take care of for the next generation. That was powerful. The second thing that I saw in UNGA with Ruto this time that he's been in America, we've had presidents who've gone to America many times from Kenya. Usually we see them land, we see a few photos of them in the General Assembly, and then we see them leave. A few of them get to articulate issues in maybe a closed session, or we see them doing bilaterals. But we never really have as close an effect as we have had with this particular president. We have seen President Ruto walking in the streets to the assembly. We have seen him sitting in through various conversations and discussions. We have seen him explain and chair and speak at UNGA. And we have heard what he has done. I think for me, the powerful thing was we saw somebody selling Kenya to the world. First and foremost, remember even before UNGA began, he went for a tour of Silicon Valley. And he met people you read about. He met the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook. He went to Levi Strauss. He went to different companies whose products we consume here in the country. And he went and sold them the Kenyan story. He went and told them about this country that has a very big youth population, that is very well informed, that is very well exposed in terms of the internet. You know, in this day and age with technology, the world is literally a global village. So what we saw President Ruto doing is trying to get these guys to understand, why don't you come to our country? We're already using your products. Your products are already very familiar to us. Come to our country. Come and engage our young people. Come and give them jobs. Set up manufacturing companies in our place. Set up hubs in our place. That was powerful. That was powerful. Most probably other presidents have done it in the past, but we've never really seen it done the way we saw it being done by President William Ruto. That was a good thing. The third thing that President Ruto did in America, in UNGA and around UNGA, was to push the Africa conversation. You know, again, I want to repeat something I've said. Technology has made the world a global village. You now cannot develop one part of the world and have another part of the world where people are dying of hunger, where people don't have electricity, where people are not as exposed, and say you're moving the world. That particular weak part of the world carries down the part that is strong. So you have a situation where if you have a part of the world where that is very, very poor, and you get criminality being pushed forward, before you know it, you have terrorism, which goes to affect the first world and the developed part of the world. So what President Ruto did was explain to the world how we must all move together. He became a champion of African interests in terms of business, that Africa is open for business. He broke down the numbers across the continent and offered this as a marketing, as a market for the first world. Think about this. We've got all these people. We've got a labor force of young people, millions of young people who are educated and exposed, who don't have jobs. And you're setting up companies in America, in Europe, in other parts of the world. Come and take advantage of this particular labor force. So essentially, we saw him articulating the African narrative, pushing for Africa interest, reminding the world that Africa is part of the world. It's actually a huge part of the world, and this was powerful. So for me, Ruto in America, Ruto at UNGA, I had those three things that stood out in my mind. first, how he ensured the conversation about the environment, which is a big thing. We don't take as much interest in it as we should, continued. Moved from continental conversations to a global conversation. The second thing he did was he became Kenya's #1 salesperson. He was out there pushing the Kenyan conversation, just trying to sell Kenya as a corporate, saying we can do this, we have a good labor force, we have a good market, we have good resources, we can provide for you the environment, you can do your business, we can give you tax breaks. He went out there to push the agenda of Kenya, and he was to succeed. Even 50% of what he was trying to do, it means we're going to have an improvement in terms of the business and economic opportunities that are going to be available to our people here in the country. And the third thing that he did was push the Africa agenda. We now have somebody articulating on the global space issues that regard Africa as a continent and making sure that the world is listening. That was powerful. That was very, very powerful.